Okay, third time's a charm. As you can see,
We're hot. No.
We're in a different space, different environment. The wind actually feels really nice right now, so you can thank the universe for that. I had an idea a couple weeks ago, and I have gotten stuck on it trying to record our next podcast outside, which, I mean, I can see, and we can get into it, how it is really helping us. I mean, it is grounding us and getting us to talk about things and real, things coming up for us right now. This, like I said, this is the third time we're trying to record this just because of different obstacles, starting with my first obstacle, walking up to the place, because I'm somebody who really likes predictability and patterns and all of that stuff, especially relative to my work. I don't like change. And so getting myself to come here, or getting us to record the podcast outside, is something that I felt was pushing myself out of my comfort zone for sure. But I just loved the idea of being out in nature, especially with the weather being nicer now. As we're walking up there, we come here multiple times.
It's a huge bee. Oh my God, it's huge.
We come here multiple times a week. And of course, the one time we decide to come and record a podcast here, there's groups and groups of kids, and whether it's day camp, school, yeah, whatever. But I made a comment to Carol, like, oh, of course, the one time we're going to record, this place is full of kids. Not really holding any weight on it. I wasn't upset. It was more just like recognizing I can see why I manifested that experience because of my own anxieties and fears and blah, blah, blah. So we were talking about earlier, like, just having to surrender to it and what's going on, which that's what's been happening for the last hour.
Yeah, because then we started recording, and 15 minutes in, the mic dropped, and she went to replug it in, and for the heck of it, she checked the camera, and we were not recording. So we had a lot of good conversations in that first one, and then
the second one, we
had to pause and have a side conversation between us.
Because of our just views, and not anything bad, more so I feel like it was probably a lot of it was like, well, at least for me, was like pressure to try to say similar things, because the first 15 minutes that we messed up were so good, and so I kept trying to remember that or whatever, so I could see how I wasn't being totally present in what I was saying in that way for sure. And then just some of our own like triggers and stuff that came up through the conversation, which you guys don't even know. We were planning to talk about intuition and projection, and how projecting, well, really quickly, is just when you or someone else isn't seeing the reality of the situation for the reality, but you're seeing it through lens of your own trauma, insecurities, fears, and it's kind of shifting that reality a little bit to make you hear maybe not necessarily what you want to hear, but these triggers that are going to come up for you. And
we were talking about when you have a safe space, which I believe we're both a safe space. When you have a safe space, you can see where you're taking something personal, or it's a trigger, or it's a projection, or it's an assumption, or and like we were talking about in the previous video that we had to re-record, just that the pause, and then the listening, like you were saying, asking someone, what did you hear me say exactly?
Yeah, we used that example.
And give them a chance to say it, and then not try to justify why they heard it that way. Like if I were to say, well, I felt like when you said this is what I heard. Well, I didn't say that, and you were doing this, and this was happening. Like that wouldn't be conducive to someone.
Well, that's why it's just validating both sides. Like, this isn't what was said, and I can recognize that, versus this is how I felt, and I can recognize that too. Like, because both realities exist.
Yeah. Because
anyways, we were just talking about how, using that example, because I said I heard it in a video just that I heard, like with communication dynamics and healthy communication dynamics, what you can do when you're noticing that you or someone is triggered is pausing the situation and asking, like, this is what I said, but what did you hear? So that was what we were saying.
But then accepting what they heard, you know what I'm saying? Like, also accepting what they heard, not trying to convince them what you were saying. Like, obviously,
but it's
say
both.
what you were saying. No, that's why it's both. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's it.
But just allowing
But you
space.
said something about how a couple minutes ago, like, having the safe space. Yeah, you keep saying having the safe space, and I was just thinking, well, what can you do if you don't have it? But that's where I feel like it almost comes in of, like, well, you're not always going to have it with someone outside of you. So if you just need to have that safe space within yourself to recognize either one, like, okay, this person's projecting their anger, their pain, their hurt onto me, and that's not mine to hold on to, and I know I did nothing wrong. Or recognizing, by having this safe space within yourself, oh my God, I can see I'm projecting my own fears, insecurities, and worries. So even if you don't have a safe space, there's someone who you feel like is on common ground and can understand you at that level, wherever you're at, being able to connect with that and create that safe space within yourself, I feel like it's just what you have to do when there is somebody who's not as open and receptive, as understanding, like everything that I just said. But we're just going into, well, I guess the biggest thing, I mean, we could focus on is communication, since that's some of the obstacles that's been coming up. And it's so funny because, I don't know, I mean, people comment on our stuff all the time, like, just that we're amazing, the best duo, I just saw someone say. And although that's so true, like, we're all human, like, and that's it, like, point blank. Everything, like, you always hear how social media isn't real, or it doesn't show all the truth. And I feel like it's really good that we can come on here and say, like, we have miscommunications all the time, but it's these tools that we try to hold on to, like the pausing and asking, you know, what did you hear, or just being open to validate both sides of the situation, that allows us to really work through it. And that's what I feel like, I might be going off on a tangent, but that's what spirituality or self-awareness does within your relationships, is allows that space for both parties to always be, like, validated and understood, instead of, getting stuck in your own stuff, which again will happen. We're human and all of that. But my whole point of that little rant the last couple minutes was just being able to recognize that we all project, me included, because projection is things that we do when we're unconscious. And so again, like, the point of this conversation is to bring understanding and awareness. Like, that's it. There's no judgment. And if you feel yourself coming up with judgment, whether on yourself or on someone else, like, that's what the self-awareness does, at least for me, is helps me let go of the judgment. Like, that's always my biggest intention, when I'm in a situation where I feel like I'm projecting and I need to let go of this judgment on myself, like, oh, I should have recognized this, like, this is a trigger that comes up all the time, or whether I feel like I'm the one that's receiving the projection. But just how understanding, like, self-awareness and projection can be so beneficial within your relationships, because I do feel like it does help you understand yourself and the other person that much better when you can recognize, because I do feel like, I guess it's then just like getting on the same page when you're understanding this person, or seeing, like, this is what they said, but this is what I heard, but recognizing, well, that's not what they said, it was my trigger. So I feel like it brings a level of, like, closeness, don't you think, with that person then, if you're able to see, like, okay, I can see how that was, my own insecurity, or I can see how that was their own insecurity, and I know I did nothing wrong, but now I can feel for them or help them work through that, if that's what they want or are open to. But I feel like all of this, and the reason we have these talks, at the end of the day, brings a closer level of, like, connection and understanding. I don't know.
Yes.
I'm sweating.
Yeah.
Well, we have been out here for probably an hour and a half. I feel like it is cooling off, though. I do want to talk a little bit about, this could be just like a tangent, but how nice I feel like it is doing this out here. And it's interesting to notice the energy that I feel like Mother Nature or Earth is bringing up even within us right now, and like the obstacles and the experiences that happened before this, because it's your root chakra, this grounding, this earth energy, and it brings up very real, like 3D things that our souls have to work through. And so I feel like I'm not surprised that we've had to record this 3 times, or we've had a little miscommunication and we have to work through it, because it's things happening all connected to the root chakra, and like understanding and really grounding us and bringing us back, which I feel like is really interesting, and something I didn't think would happen just from connecting to a different energy instead of our usual, little studio space back home.
So that's a wrap. No, but it's true. And I've heard it in all of my classes that I've gone to. Like, you could have a plan, and you could like have a structured format, and then spirit, once you're open to spirit and to see like how when you surrender to the moment, it flows where it flows, and obstacles stop you, and obstacles, well, and
I feel like obstacles stop you if you resist it, which I feel like
we
that's
could
my
have
problem.
I'm surprised she hasn't closed up.
I was very close.
I know she was close, and I was sitting back like, oh, this is
just
funny.
waiting.
I can't wait. I'm like, but I also know how determined she is, and she wanted to record outside, so she has all of it wrapped up. So, so I was interested to see what we were ever going to end up talking about, given we just did a whole talk and
then it wasn't recording.
Yeah.
But really, so it's like, I feel like this conversation then is a mix of like, because I do feel like we are meant to talk a little bit about projection and understanding each other.
And sometimes environment, getting out of your normal space with a friend or a loved one, or
you have a little fuzzy on your nose,
or yourself, and just getting out of your normal space. And
there's a lot of teachings here, not needing everything to be perfect, worrying about all the people walking by, or really testing your old limits or old insecurities, because I definitely feel like before I definitely would have been freaking out about like every little thing, like a person walking by or like a machine that's making extra noise. And so how can we organize this a little
more?
I
don't think I ever wanted to sweat this bad on camera. I see her face is so dry. I'm like, I'm in menopause. It's hot.
No, but okay. Let's see. I really kind of like just the way this is flowing. You guys can follow along, and if you don't, it's okay. It's more of just like a fun. That was your whole thing walking up. She's like, let's just have a fun episode. It doesn't have to be anything serious. And because I wanted to talk about projection, self-awareness, I had my plan. So, I don't know. I guess the whole point of this conversation is surrender. I guess you can see is just going with what comes up and being open to it, because I think that's one of the things that I always would struggle with surrender, is it was always like, then I'm off track, or it's not on the plan, and then things aren't going to go right, instead of seeing how my own resistance to surrendering is what was causing things to be bigger than it is, instead of just being like, oh, you know what, this is how this happened today, or this is how this played out. There was nothing I could do about it, but let me keep going and go with the flow, which I feel like is such a good teaching.
And we're talking about the projection and intuition, and the little story I was sharing with her, which she knows it, but was it was my son's birthday. Just knowing, like, is it your higher self? Is it your authentic self, the thought that comes in? Or is it, people want to know, how do I connect to that higher frequency of knowing, whether it's guides or yourself? And I was telling her on my way to work, I had a thought come in, oh, you should make Sean a cake for his birthday. And it was like, it felt so good. It was like time was paused for me because I knew it was a teaching. That's what I was telling her. I'm like, I knew this was a big teaching for me and for people. And
Well, afterwards, when you were able to reflect.
yeah, when I was able to reflect. So, but
Yeah.
but at the time it seemed in slow motion because the thought came in and I like smiled and I was able to tune into my body and it felt good and light and like the old days, making cakes for my kids or whatever. It was just a good feeling. And then the very next thought was, oh, I don't have time. And I had time. I don't have time to do that. I'd have to go get all the strawberries and chop them up, whatever. I went through the thing and I could be doing other things. And then I'll have to make all the kids a cake for their birthday. I'm going to be singling him out like he's special. So all these other thoughts ran through my head of why I should not make the cake. It's just so much easier to buy a cake. He likes the, strawberry shortcake cake the best anyway. There's no reason for me to make this cake. But as I had time to sit with it and listen to myself, I thought, I actually, within 10 minutes, I called his wife and said, can I make his cake? And she said, yeah, sure. I have a box cake here if you want it. And I said, no, I just want to make it. And she's like, okay. Anyway, so I did it and it felt good and it was amazing for me, the experience. So it's hearing that, how that thought feels, like when a thought comes in out of nowhere and then paying attention with awareness to other thoughts surrounding it, your environment, what's going on. And I was just so easily able to be like, oh no, I have to make that cake. There's something bigger.
Well, after you acknowledge all of the,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to do
Yeah.
this or this
Yeah.
or the excuses that we come up with. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about like trusting or differentiating like intuition versus like your...
Which is all part of even the projection piece because it's like, again, the feeling, the thought, what you're going into. A lot of times when you're projecting, it's more heavier or painful or triggered or all those feelings are with that. So no, like what you're saying in the pause would be like the thought, oh, you should bake them a cake. So in that pause, there's space and there's lightness rather than, deep
But also
heavy.
surrender because you surrendered to the thought, like as much as you didn't want to do it and as much as, his wife already said she would make the cake and all this stuff, all these excuses, like you still surrendered to that intuitive thought that came up and trusted, like, you don't have to, but it came up for a reason and it did bring up certain things for you. I'm sure it brought up certain things and meanings for him too. And overall, like, beautiful experience. So yeah, projection, intuition, like surrender, all kind of tied in to one, really. Because and that's the biggest thing with intuitive thoughts that come up, I feel like is so deeply connected to surrender because we receive an intuitive thought or message within ourselves. And then we so often jump to like other perspectives or
Which
ideas
goes
or
into confusion then.
Yeah.
And then you don't know because you had this thought that now you brought down and mixed it like into confusion and negative thoughts or projections or whatever, and
fears.
Then you got further and further away from that authentic. So anytime you can listen to that, that's another way to get close to your own energy, to your authentic self. And I was telling her, like, a lot of times you'll just have a thought like driving, like, oh, you should turn right or, turn here. And we ignore it. Like, no, I live that way. Like, why would I turn here? But every time you can listen to that, I think is a good way to build awareness too. And surrender, all of it.
Well, that's like all of it, really. Because, and I guess to just help understand like an intuitive thought, I always say is there's more of a connection, or not motivation, more of like an inspiration behind the thought. And it's surrendering to those types of feelings of, I don't know why I just felt inspired to turn this way or take a different route, or I don't know why I just, felt inspired to bake this cake, but I do, and I'm going to trust, that it's going to do something for me, or maybe it won't, but I'm building this trust with my intuition. And
Yeah.
so that when bigger decisions come up, or you'll already have that base
Yeah.
understanding your connection with yourself, that's going to make it easier.
Yeah.
Whereas you could feel that inspiration or receive that intuitive thought and resist it. I'm sure we all have before. I definitely have, because it's not with the plan. It's not with, what I wanted it to look like or whatever it is. And you could resist it, but then it's like you're missing out on that opportunity to get deeper within your intuition instead of just seeing what happens.
And that's it. Even the thought, and that I always analyze a lot for my own learning and growth. So I analyzed this because I knew it was a teaching, and I knew it was for me, and I knew, so that's why I analyzed it so much. And I wouldn't say so much, but and I thought about, like, what if I didn't make the cake? Like, how would I feel? What would I have done in the morning? Because it took like an hour and a half, like, to chop everything up. So it took some time. Go to the store, whatever, do all the stuff. So I like imagined what my morning would have been like if I didn't do it, and I saw like things. I didn't see a happy morning, put it that way.
Well, that was probably,
and it's just from that one thing. No, but I'm saying, like, and I think what was at the base of it was I didn't listen to myself. I didn't honor what came through for myself, what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that's it. It could be something that simple, like, I'm going to the gym today, and you don't go, and then you know, when you do go, you feel good because you said you were doing it, and you're listening, you're building that with yourself. So
I did hear something that said, like, when you do have like an inspiration or intuitive thought, like, you have like X amount of seconds to
really?
act on it before it's just really gone, and then you talk yourself out of it.
Oh, wow. Well, that's exactly, and I knew that because that's why I texted her right away, like, can I make his cake? And I hesitated. I was like, press send. And because I knew then I had to. And I'm acting like this was all a force thing, but it's because, again, I was so aware of my thoughts after, because I did really want to make his cake for him, but
Yeah. So where does that lead us? I mean, I don't know. Intuition and understanding the difference between intuitive thoughts. I guess we could talk a little bit about then projection, like the opposite, because we talked about what an intuitive thought feels like and how to surrender to it. I guess projection really is like the opposite. Like, I think I started the beginning of this explaining that it's seeing the reality through different lens of your triggers, of your fears, of your insecurities. And so maybe not in that same example, like, I don't think there was any projection within yourself that you were doing, but in other examples, within communication with other people, or like one of the first times we talked about this, we brought up projection within receiving readings from like other mediums, where people can put their own fears or insecurities onto you, and being able to slow down and have that level of self-awareness to see either if you're the one projecting and like, this person said this, but I took it this way and it brought up this insecurity and I got triggered and reacted this way. Being able to step into that understanding with yourself and having that awareness of that projection, or when you did that, so that you can shift it, the next time, or vice versa. Like, if somebody else is projecting onto you, being able to recognize, this is where they're at, and that they did get triggered with what I said, and I can understand why they did for their experiences or past experiences, but I also know I did nothing wrong in this moment, or that's not what I meant, that wasn't my intention. And being able to validate both aspects or both experiences to help the like relationship and the communication. So I guess projection, I think
that's where like empathy and respect and everything comes in, because you're talking about a conversation. It is to recognize once this person says, well, you just said this or this, and you're like, well, my intention was not, like, so it's okay to validate that for, each
Yeah.
other. Otherwise, it's just a closed door, like, well, that's on you.
Well,
and it's not. This is a conversation. It's a communication. It's on both of us. This experience is both of us.
And that's where the surrender comes in now within projection, is being able to see, okay, that's how they took it. I have to be able to validate them for where they're at and, what I triggered in them, because even though it wasn't my intention, I still did it. But they also have to be able to recognize that is my own trigger, and that's not what they said. That's not how they meant it. So I can honor them in that space too. And surrendering to that brings, like I said, that deeper level of like connection within relationships.
Yeah.
So I guess surrender is the point of this conversation, because you said it in one of the first times that we tried to record, like, Kaylee, relax.
Wait, see this? She tells me to relax.
It was in my face.
Thank you, God.
Should I keep this in?
I don't know.
I
don't know.
No, but what was I saying? You were
in the beginning of it, surrender.
Yeah.
You said
You just brought up before how maybe we should just talk about surrender because of all these obstacles and everything. But it really is the point of the two things we wanted to talk about, because you wanted to share that story of the intuition and intuitive thought and inspiration and surrendering to that. And I wanted to talk about projection and working through communication and being able to surrender to that to bring more understanding and surrendering to all the obstacles, just from the day. So I would be curious to see if anybody else listening to this has been having their own obstacles or teachings of surrender and listening to control, or letting go of control, letting go of control and seeing where it takes you. Because I feel like, I don't know, it's one of the hardest things for me to be able to do. But it does feel really good when you're able to surrender.
But it makes me think, like, when an obstacle arises, when do you know to stick with it? Try this, try that, or when to be like, okay, we're gonna close up now.
Yeah.
Like if it went on for another hour, I would have melted. So I don't think I could. But seriously, like, when do you?
So I actually shared a post about this. I made a video about it the other day. Guess you didn't listen to it. No, I'm just kidding. But I did share how, like, sometimes we can have an intuitive thought or goal, and it's something we want to work towards or something we want to make happen. But then there's obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. Yeah, like you said, how do we know? Do we take a different path or go with it? And I just shared the perspective that, like, the whole situation walking up here, I could have taken that whole day camp, kids everywhere, as an obstacle to, oh, no, we're not supposed to do it.
That was the first one. We recorded, and then it was never recording. That was the second. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
When do you?
Because, like, you have to realize
somewhere in there.
Well, but because you have to realize when, you have to be able to differentiate if you're really being asked to take a different path or if you're manifesting and aligning with these obstacles because of your own fears, which I said, I recognized, at least for me, like the first example with the daycare kids, like I was able to recognize, I manifested that experience, but I'm going to work through it because of whatever the inspiration was to have it out here and see what the energy does and the change of scenery. So I really do feel like that is how you know. And for you guys, if you didn't see my video or my reel that I posted, being able to recognize you can still have a goal or an idea or whatever it is that you're wanting to work towards or see be created. Just because there's obstacles doesn't mean it's not meant to happen. It's being able to see, am I the one that is aligning with these obstacles to tell me what I already think about the situation, because I already came here, trying to ignore the thoughts of this isn't a good idea. Like there's a lot of things that's going to take us off track. We're not going to be able to control it. And of course I'm going to see, a million and one reasons why we shouldn't have done it out here. So I feel like that's
see
the
cardinal
difference.
in that tree.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, you do? In the one
Yeah.
in front? And I'm thinking how beautiful it is, and maybe we should do this more often. After we work out the kinks.
Yeah. It might be a little hard episode to follow, but it does all kind of tie together if you can see the puzzle of it. Sometimes that's just how it has to go. But yeah, I don't know. Just play with the idea of surrender. I mean, I feel like there was a couple different topics. So like intuition, intuitive thoughts, and surrendering to them versus projection and obstacles and situations that we can't control, and learning how to surrender to them. And then recognizing when you're supposed to work through the obstacles and continue to that intuitive thought or that inspiration that you felt, and just playing with these ideas. But definitely be curious. I want to look up, I know the full moon was the other day, like I wonder if it's bringing up any of these energies of obstacles, just because we always talk about the themes in life, and what's happening to one is usually happening to another, to the collective. But if there's anything you can learn from this podcast episode, is surrender.
Try something new, be flexible.
And just see where it takes you, even if there's obstacles. Notice where you're the one resisting it, and not seeing it as like, oh, I'm not meant to do this, but more how you're manifesting or aligning to those situations, like these bugs that keep attacking us because we're terrified of them.
There was only a couple.
See you next week, guys.
Bye.
Probably won't be outside. No, I'm kidding.